We're going to talk fireworks today. If you're a local resident, you know this is a hot topic. So, I know we don't want you guys all rush in, but we want you guys to call because we want you guys to, ask the questions you need because we got some great guests today. And joining me is my communications director at the City Council. That's Malia Zimmerman, everybody. Come on. Yeah.
Aloha.
All right, are we ready? Because
we are ready this time.
That a lot of people will call in and ask the questions. That's bugging you about fireworks. And joining us from the city deputy prosecuting attorney from the prosecuting office, Daniel Hugo. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, man. And HPD Captain Jerome Pacaro.
Hey, aloha.
Yeah, I know a lot of Pacaros. And by the way, I'm Augie, everybody. This is like my second week of doing talk radio. I'm excited. After hearing my air check last week, I would have fired me. I would have fired me. But, I love doing it. It's always been an ambition to something personal for me. I love talk radio. And I'm Portuguese. You can relate to that. I'm Mr. Pacaro.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So, growing up in Hawaii, many of us use fireworks, sparklers during the 4th of July, New Year's Eve, Chinese New Year's. These celebrations were often marked by, a sense of community. We all grew up knowing hey, this is something we look forward to. And it was fun. It was things that, if you go back in memory, you can go, yeah, I remember doing this. I remember my friends and your uncles and your aunties all coming around, lighting fireworks. And, it was about pride, culture, respect with neighborhoods, quieting down after midnight. Now we know that's not happening anymore. And it's not the same cultural activities that we grew up, being a part of. And there's now widespread use of illegal aerial fireworks year round and much more powerful bombs. You just showed us something that I was like, man. And often, getting lit up in the kind of unusual times of the day and all times of, nights where we know that a lot of our residents, either have PTSD because they're veterans, you have animals and you have people that go to work, you have kupuna, and it's become a nuisance. So, we wanted to talk about fireworks today. So again, 808-913-6450. Okay. So again, from you guys' perspective, panel, and Malia, you can jump in. I want you to jump in, okay? How and why you think fireworks, the usage on Oahu, got so out of control?
Well, thanks, Augie, for having me. I appreciate you having on here, and this is a great topic to talk about with it being so critical these days. But for me, I just am talking as just a local boy that grew up in Hawaii. It's nothing even to do with being an officer. It's just I just feel the progression of society. Everything is more extreme. You got social media. Mm-hmm. You have the world is so much smaller these days. Yeah. I mean, we look at simple things like riding a bicycle back when we grew up, mm-hmm. and now bicycle, maybe you hop off the curb. That was the extreme thing to do back then. Now they have e-bikes doing wheelies down the middle of the roadway. To put in perspective, boxing was one of the most bloodiest sports at one time. Now there's MMA, right. UFC, bare knuckle fights. So I think it's just looking at it as just a person in society and how extreme the progression of society was.
Yeah, no, I just shared a video of things we did growing up in the 70s. Right? I mean, I feel so old, but I told my friends, I showed the video. I go, what's the difference? When you saw kids riding bikes, right? It wasn't on the street. It was like in the park and on dirt roads. you know, and it's become so extreme, kind of like what we're seeing now. So what about you, Mr. Hugo?
So the other thing that we see, if you think about it like a supply and a demand problem, on the supply side, there's a lot more scale. And that's not just in Hawaii. You're seeing these large fireworks seizures that are occurring on the mainland as well. And then on the demand side, we don't have quite as effective tools to prosecute these cases.
Yeah.
So I think earlier we had kind of evidentiary rules that were a lot looser, but today we have court procedures that are a lot more stringent.
Yeah, it's so complex. You know, I was in a hearing a couple of weeks ago, and I mean, it's so hard. How are you guys going to do your job when there's so, you know, big difference between the state and the city? And, you know, we got to tighten that up so that, you know, we can, you know, give you guys the tools needed, yeah, to maybe enforce or find better ways, right? Stop the fireworks from coming in.
Yeah, how are the fireworks coming in? Is that something you can talk about?
I can't talk about the tactics, but I mean, we are on an island, so it is. I use the word smuggle because that's what it is. It's illegal contraband that's coming into a place where it's not allowed. So of course it would come in through parcels through either some sort of mail, maybe the government or private businesses, or also the ports. You know, that's coming in through the shipping containers, similar to how we get all our products here in Hawaii: toilet paper, toothpaste, and all that stuff. Yeah,
I'd be so afraid if I was on an airplane and somebody was bringing fireworks.
I think it's harder doing that. I think it's a lot easier. I just, it was like dinner time, and, you know, you could hear it going off around, and my wife went online, and you know how easy it is to buy fireworks online, and shipping it is also easy too. And they'll tell you, the supplier will tell you, once you do it, you know, it's not our fault. It's all on you, kind of a deal, right? And, it's very complex, but, you know, people always find ways to do things illegal, right? So when you talk about, like, you know, why, you know, the supply and demand, tell the public about the supply and demand that you're just, you know, you're just speaking about, Mr. Hugo.
So on the supply side, we're dealing with unexploded ordnance that we've intercepted, usually these bulk shipments or things that are coming in through cargo. On the demand side, we're dealing with essentially people blowing up the evidence right in front of the officer.
Right.
And so right now we have laws that are trying to tackle both of those things at once, but they're two separate problems. They're two separate evidentiary problems when you're trying to bring this into court.
And people are not dumb. They know this, right? Because we still live in a society that, you know, we have the coconut wireless. Hey, you heard about John? John got caught, but you know, because they couldn't measure the height or they couldn't get him on camera. No, you're not going to get busted.
Yeah, exactly. And once people see that the law isn't enforced, that also, you know, it's the opposite of how deterrence works, right? Deterrence, you see that the law is being enforced, and then other people decide that they're going to comply. The same thing works the other way around. When people see that the law isn't enforced, it emboldens them. And, you know, it's very frustrating, I imagine, also for officers who you write the citation, you take it to court, and then you find, just as a matter of law, none of this can be proven just because of how the laws are framed.
Yeah, it must be frustrating for police officers. And I mean, how are you going enforce when there's 100,000 people doing it simultaneously, right? And we'll break down as we go on in the conversation on the difficulties for the police officer to, like, arrest a guy or a girl using illegal fireworks. Malia, you had something?
Are these cartels that bring fireworks? Are they just like business people? Who are they?
I think actually from what I don't want to give too much away because we do have investigations going, but I would just say a majority of it is Hawaii residents. You know, of course, when they bring it in, it's sent to a dummy corporation, a third party alias, but we have our ways to go and track that down.
Or the prison.
And
yeah, we saw that. We saw what happened with that. I mean,
good
like I
thing
said,
you
people are
found
clever.
out, huh?
Well, people are clever. They find ways to, like, get around things. I mean, gosh, go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, I think just the general resident, that either is someone that's grew up with fireworks that take it, like I said, to more of an extreme level. And then there's also people that profit from it. And that's who we are after as part of the Narco Vice Division.
And that's the thing, right? We know, and just, just by watching what's happening, New Year's Eve, 4th of July, like, man, the amount of money that is coming in, and the amount of money that people are spending in a time where, like, we're supposedly, living paycheck to paycheck. I'm blown away at the minutes, and the time from like 9 p.m. on New Year's Eve, and the amount of fireworks that's going off is pretty amazing. So you see the supply and demand right in front of you, and it's a huge market. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Hugo.
So I think there's a general trend, and it's not just local culture. You see this all across American culture, to take things to more and more extremes. Fireworks, precisely what makes them entertaining is also what makes them dangerous.
Right.
And it's like that with many things, right? It's a lot of fun to drive a fast car.
Right.
But if you're doing it on the highway around other people, then it becomes a public danger, right? If you're doing it on a racetrack, then it's entertainment.
Correct.
So
let me ask you this. You think we live in a society that's don't obey laws? We just become a lawless society. There are times where it feels like that, as a public servant. Okay, so I live in Eva. I walk into a lounge drugs, and I see a guy openly stealing, just stealing. Again, we can go back to the times when we were growing up. We saw the punishment. We knew you was going to get caught. But you see somebody just taking, and then they walk right out, and I'm looking at the employees, and they're going, "Oh, we're told not to touch them because." So it almost feels like with fireworks, with, stealing, it's like we've lost respect for the law. We lost respect for people who serve, that look like you and I, that go home to families. And like you said, it is excitement, but if you're not punishing these people, they continue to do it. So I almost feel like, we live in such a lawless community that we don't even understand. I told you guys, I get calls, but if you make fireworks illegal, we're not going to vote for you. I'm like, bro, it's illegal. It's like stealing is illegal. It's like speeding is illegal. Why you pull a speed hump? Well, how about you just drive the speed limit? You know what I mean? So like, it's frustrating, and I get. You think some of it is that?
So as a prosecutor, we see both sides of it.
Yeah.
We definitely see the breakdown of law and order. Every single file that we have is basically a law that was broken. On the other hand, we also see people consistently standing up to restore law and order. We see people serving on juries. We see police officers going out and doing incredible investigative work. That often doesn't make the headlines, right? When things go right, nobody sends out a social media post, hey, no murders today.
Yeah.
Right? But when we have those breakdowns, of course it gets our attention. But I think we need to have a balanced perspective on things. It definitely, as a prosecutor, would be easy to just walk in and think it's all going to pieces.
Yeah, you guys work in a gray area. And it's tough. Yeah, it's tough prosecuting. We citizen juvenile crimes. We don't want to, arrest young kids. But then, where do we draw the line? When these kids are harming sometimes adults, kupuna. How about as a police officer perspective?
Yeah, we definitely see both sides of that. We do see certain amount of the public that'll step up and they're thinking enough is enough. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword for us as police officers to ask the public to step in to a harmful situation also. So kind of as a society, we're kind of playing that cat and mouse game of, do we ask the public for help and then cause liability for them to get hurt? We're the trained ones. We're the ones with the tools to address these things. But sadly, we're just not there all the time. We can't just be everywhere.
We're talking fireworks, Malia. I see you raising your hand. It's awesome.
Well, I have a question about, there's like a law enforcement task force, right? that's coming together and to look at kind of, or is it already existing? And
So I don't want to speak for the Department of Law Enforcement, but they have a task force formed. Though we're not a part of the task force at this point because there's logistical work on MOUs and whatnot. We do have an independent task force or a detail under my purview that are running parallel with the DLE task force. We share information, we work together. But we just can't say we're together yet. Yeah.
And your department, you do a lot. You're not just doing fireworks, right?
Correct. Under the Narcotics Vice Division, we do gambling, which is the illegal game rooms, as you can see this morning's incident.
Yeah.
We do, of course, narcotics across the board with the fentanyl, increase in fentanyl. We do human trafficking with sex and labor trafficking. Chicken fights, we kind of got it, kind of a lot of things under our purview.
I was going to say, you have all the tough jobs to cover, huh?
Yes, and I have excellent personnel in my division that work very hard to try and address these issues.
Yeah, and by the way, we are looking for police officers, you guys, So it's nothing. I'm telling you, as a first-time politician, being a public servant, there's nothing more than waking up and wanting to serve your community with the right intentions of like making this place a better place. So, I'm gonna do a big shout out. We need some police officers and we need good lawyers.
Absolutely. Thanks, Augie. HonoluluPD.org, please. Submit an application.
All right, coming up, we're going to talk a little bit about understanding the source of illegal fireworks.
The Right Side will be right back with more common sense conversations only on AM 690, FM 94.3. The Answer.
All right, 808-913-6450. That's 808-913-6450. I'm Augie. Welcome to The Right Side, a common sense conversation. We're talking fireworks today, and in the studio we have HPD Captain Jerome Picaro and City Deputy Prosecuting Attorney Daniel Hugo. Thanks again for stopping by. Understanding the source of illegal fireworks. So one of the critical questions surrounding the issue is how and why fireworks usage are out of control in Oahu. Do you guys have any insight on this? Again, if you guys joining us, we're talking fireworks. Mr. Hugo?
So generally, we're looking at, like we were talking about, shipments that are coming in through mail or also through the harbors. The main issue here, of course, is there's money in it. Mm-hmm. It's quite a lucrative enterprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think going back to how the world got smaller, the access there. Before we couldn't reach directly out to China through the dark web or any kind of websites and actually order fireworks, let alone there's drugs coming in and whatnot. So I think the world just got a lot smaller and the access got a lot bigger.
Yeah. People often ask, guys, why don't the police do anything to stop illegal fireworks, explosions? But there are challenges with the current law. So let's talk law so that people understand, because it is very complex. And, when people ask me, while I'm shopping, come on, it's so hard to explain because, again, height, right? In some instances, is like, if it is below a certain height, it's not, it's a misdemeanor.
And then the evidence gets blown up.
Right. Or you cannot use the picture in the court. Do we really want to turn in our neighbor? So let's talk about the law. What's the start?
So we can start with the definition of a firework.
Okay.
Firework, you've got to have a minimum of what they say is a quarter grain. So that's about 16 milligrams of explosive material. So if you don't meet that threshold, you're not in firework. Next, if we're talking about an aerial device has a maximum of 130 milligrams of explosive material. So that's the way that it's defined. So in any sort of trial where one of the elements is to prove that it's an aerial device, we have to be able to show that it had between 16 milligrams and 130 milligrams, beyond reasonable doubt.
Right.
And once the firework is exploded, all of the evidence for how much explosive material is gone.
Right.
But then that's just a definitional challenge. We also have investigative challenges. So as we talked about things coming in through the harbors or things coming in through airports, you've got state and federal jurisdiction. Up until 2011, we had case law that if there's a investigation that goes on in another jurisdiction, that jurisdiction's rules apply. And the case there was wiretapping in California, where the entire part of the investigation took place in California, and we were allowed to use that evidence because it was all collected in California. In 2011, that changed, and that was a case called State versus Torres, which involved an NCIS investigation that started off as a firearm and theft investigation, and later on, so that was the federal side of it, but later on there was a state prosecution for murder. The state prosecution relied upon part of the evidence that was seized in the federal case, and although ultimately the Hawaii Supreme Court allowed that evidence in, they only let it in because it met the state standards. So if we have a federal investigation that doesn't meet the Hawaii constitutional standards, oftentimes we could be facing a suppression issue.
Oh, gosh.
And so it's very important that we have that coordination with federal enforcement from the start if we're going to be able to prosecute these later in state court.
Yeah. It's super complicated.
Yeah, and for us, there's always two sides to enforcement on our side. So under the Narcotics Vice Division, we're a proactive unit that seeks out and seizes fireworks through covert operations and parcel interdiction and whatnot. So that's not too bad for us, because then at that point we do have the actual firework in our hand in which we could test and we could submit some good evidence for it. But yes, I got to talk about the other side, which is the beatman on the street that's pounding the pavement every day, going call to call to call, and at that time that he sees a firework go up, usually that shadowy figure that lit it is already running back into a crowd of 30 people. That's one challenge of IDing that person. And then two, once it ignites and explodes, how do we test for that? How much milligrams?
130 milligrams.
Specifically 130 milligrams of gunpowder.
Right.
So that's kind of like the challenge on the patrol side. And I think that's what gets the community in the uproar, is they see these blue lights driving around and they see all these fireworks. And that's, I would have to bring that to the attention so that I can kind of back up my brothers and sisters in blue that's out there every day.
Again, it's so frustrating because that the public, the sentiment is like, wow, you guys doing your guys' job? And you are. It's just, it's so difficult, the way the laws are made. So what are we doing to hopefully change these laws?
So just quickly, another common issue or another common question that people ask is, how come you can't just fly drones over it? There's a Hawaii Supreme Court case, State versus Kide, 2017 case, that aerial surveillance is a search. And so you need a warrant in advance if you're going to be flying it over someone's private residential area. So those are the sort of challenges. But I think in terms of reforms, first thing that we would want is to get some definitional clarity. And, we're working this session with the Attorney General's office and many other stakeholders to be able to get clear definitions, because we're looking at two different cases, right? When you have the unexploded ordnance that's seized, sure, we can probably test it to determine whether, what the explosive material content is. But we do need to also have definitions that can work for that demand side when people are lighting the firework. And so that a patrol officer who sees someone ignite something that goes up is able to, have a citable offense that can be proven in court later on.
Yeah. Again, very, very complex. And, we are trying to do our best to, solve the problem, right? But like everything, it's a process, and I know, again, I do a video every year just reminding people, we call ourselves the Aloha State, and a lot of the people that complain, they call my office, the kupuna or the veteran, they know it's coming, but like the explosive at 7 p.m. October 23rd, what is, celebration of life, okay? Yeah, but like, it's just gotten so out of hand. And, I know people are listening and they probably wondering, what's happening. Can you guys maybe update or talk about the Aliamanu incident that now is taking the lives of 6 people?
So that case is currently actively under investigation. We can't comment on it because of something called the trial publicity rule.
Yeah.
At some point, if there's a trial on this case, we want to make sure that jury, is not tainted by anything.
Mm-hmm.
Also, at this time, we're trying to safeguard the integrity of the investigation itself. But what I will say is that if people know about this case, please contact Crime Stoppers. You never know when a very small part of small piece of information can be critical in these investigations. So I would encourage that.
Absolutely.
All right. Hey, can we do one more question before we take a hard break? Okay. So, let's see. Can you share any notable cases you've handled related to illegal fireworks?
I can't share anything on the HPD side.
Yeah.
What I can say is there are investigations going on that should have some impact that comes down.
Yeah.
We're working really hard and putting fireworks as a priority.
Yeah. See, I think we all know, we hear it in the background, like, maybe we start arresting people, sending them to jail, maybe this thing slow down. And, I can almost guarantee you the incident that happened in Aliamanu has already changed the way, we do and see a lot of things now here in Hawaii. We knew it was dangerous. We knew, that the possibility, because it's not the first time we've heard of cases, where, guys were in the bunker. We heard about what happened in the bunker storing fireworks. We know how dangerous it is. And at the end of the day, it comes to personal responsibility. Personal responsibility. So, again, our hearts and prayers are with the family out in Aliamanu, and, we got to do whatever we can. So this legislation, is in session, and this week the state senators declined to move forward with a statewide ban on all fireworks, but they say they're working to strengthen law enforcement's ability to investigate and prosecute firework cases. So measures that have been introduced to increase illegal fireworks use penalties, fund law enforcement investigation, and allow for random inspection of containers at ports. Are there any measures still alive, and does the department support those measures?
For the HPD, we support all measures that are going to help assist in the deterring the use of fireworks. But specifically, we like House Bill 1005 and Senate Bill 1324, and that came out of the governor's package. And that is a lot to do with Prosecutor Hugo mentioned is simplifying the definitions and addressing and making it more enforceable.
All right.
Yeah.
And our office is speaking with the Attorney General's office, trying to align our position in terms of. But those are the bills that we're looking at this session as well. In terms of a total ban, there's no point in having a ban if there's no enforcement.
Right. Correct.
And as far as I'm aware, there's only one state in the country that has successfully been able to ban most, and that's Massachusetts. But they've had that since 1943.
Right.
In most states.
So it's become a culture already.
Exactly.
And I think one year I was in Evansville, Indiana, no fireworks. We had poppers. And it became kind of a culture, this is what we're going to do. And again, we can continue to use fireworks are cultural things, but not what we're seeing in this time, where we're seeing, loud explosions, and the picture that you showed me.
Absolutely.
That's a bomb.
When we grew up, bottle rockets.
Right.
Maybe a half inch, maybe an inch.
Right.
We're talking 6, 8, 10-inch balls now. That's a bomb. And you use that word to begin this show. That's exactly what that is. It's a bomb.
Right. 808. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, on my street growing up in Kailua, they would, the biggest thing was somebody would take remember those big, long red firecracker rolls, and they would unroll it, and then they hang it on the second story, and then they'd light it, which is probably really not that smart.
Right.
But and then that would and then everybody would sweep up the red paper the next day. Yeah. That was about the biggest excitement.
That was it.
That was it.
That's it. Yeah. Times has changed, and that's the reason why we're having this conversation. The number here, 808-913-6450. Hanging out with me today is my communications director, Malia Zimmerman, city deputy, prosecuting attorney Daniel Hugo, and HPD Captain Jerome Pacaro. It's the right side. This is Augie. Hope you guys enjoying the show.
We're back with more common sense conversations on the right side, right here on AM 690, FM 94.3, The Answer.
We're talking fireworks today, and what a great conversation. Thank you, guys. I hope this is helping you, and that's the reason why I decided, like, okay, I do a morning radio show daily. I go to the city council and I'm like, okay, why don't you come back on Wednesday and do another radio show? And I do this because I truly believe in transparency. I truly believe that, we got to do a better job as lawmakers to be transparent and give out as much information as we can. Because, again, a lot of people that live in a gray area, they don't, you got to, you got to live in a gray area. You got to take black and white because, there are a lot of people affected by what we do. And we need to take personal responsibility. And the way to do it is like really understanding the law and what can happen if you get caught. So, before we wrap up, again, thank you guys so much for coming out and hanging out with me today. But, is there any law enforcement task force? We've been hearing about a task force, but tackling the issue, and if so, which agencies are representative, and can we get some insight on the progress?
Yeah, absolutely. As we spoke before, the Department of Law Enforcement has a task force working right now. We are working to be a part of that task force. There's some agreements that still need to be ironed out. Independently, HPD does have its own unit that is dedicated to firearms and fireworks. And they're working hard to conduct covert operations to interdict the fireworks and firearms.
And I know on the prosecuting side, you guys do a great job. And, Prosecutor is a good friend of mine. In fact, he married me, and, I married Malia.
Your daughter, not me. He has a daughter named Malia.
But, and I know he's working on, you guys are working hard in the department. Any last thoughts on just to recap?
We work primarily with HPD, and we really rely on the police in everything we do, but we certainly are happy to cooperate with state, federal agencies, and I think it is going to need to be an all-agency push.
Yeah.
I have a question for Captain Carl.
Okay.
So if I have a neighbor blowing up fireworks, and I'm worried that's going to impact my house. Luckily, I don't have that. They're the next block over. But if I did have that where they were blowing them up regularly.
Just for squealing them.
What do I do? What do I do? Because how am I? Yeah, it's the next block. I'll give you the address. But what do you do as a citizen when you hear them go off or you see your neighbors doing that? And it's a scary thing.
That's a great question. Similar to what Augie just said, our culture in Hawaii was always to mind our own business, right? And never tell on somebody. But, with the lessons learned from Aliamanu, it's a totally different animal when you're dealing with bombs and explosives. It's not just someone drinking in public that, we're just going to look the other way and whatnot. This is definitely something that can affect your family, your house. If that tube or cake flipped in a certain way, that's your garage that's getting hit. So going back to your question on the logistical side, you call 911 immediately, be the best witness you can, get whatever footage you can. When the officer shows up, he's going to be presented with whatever facts on scene, and he's going to take whatever action that can be taken. If enforcement action can be taken on scene at that time with the assistance of the reporting person, then he will do so or she will do so. And if cannot, then that information will be forwarded directly to me, in which we will look at it on the covert side.
Yeah, and again, I know it's difficult, but at the same time, we know, we're going to continue to let this lawlessness happen, right? And not really think about, our neighbors, the people who is affected by that. I mean, again, I'm going to keep saying this. We call ourselves the law state. Let's really live a law then. What does that mean? What does that mean to you, right? When you see somebody doing something that's, you're not following the law. You know, it breaks my heart because we see the damages. You know, Aliamanu, we've seen the damages in Kalihi. You know, we see a lot of things happen, and I just hope that we all can start living aloha and being respectful towards one another. Guys, thank you guys so much. Mr. Hugo, Mr. Picaro, Malia, we'll see you at work tomorrow. Thank you guys for giving me this opportunity. I'm Augie. Have a great day, and continue to listen to The Right Side, a common sense conversation.